All right, so let's go ahead and dive right in and we'll get started. And the first thing that we're going to start from is we're going to start from the landing screen in DakStats. And we're going to kind of go through this in the order that you have to do it in order to get everything done correctly. So we're going to start by setting up our new season. And what you'll see is I've set up a season here for the 1989 MLB playoffs. There is a method to my madness, as you will see as we go through this presentation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the season line and we're going to click configure. And when we click configure, you'll see your season preferences and we're going to add a new season. And so since I'll probably end up using this at some point this spring, I'll just go ahead and set up my new season. So we'll call it 2024 scorers table because that's who I do my remote stuff through. And we'll call it baseball. The biggest point of advice I can give you with DakStats baseball, and I will show you briefly here in a moment why I say this. Stay as far away from box total mode as you possibly can. It is a true nightmare. So we're going to set our default entry mode to play-by-play simple. And this is going to be just like a score sheet. We're going to use our rules file, rules NCAA, BA for baseball, SB for softball, and set our default gender as male. And we're going to click OK. It's going to ask you if you want to set up your WebSync profile. Alan probably recognizes this screen. We don't have to do this anymore. This was for when the NAIA was using this as their stat reporting software. We could set up the file, and it really was kind of the precursor to what ended up becoming what Genius does, where we uploaded the stats when we were done, and it reported for both teams, and then the other team could pull down the file for their season files. So we're going to say no for now. And now we'll see that this is added here. And if you ever need to go back and edit something, let's say you put the wrong rules file or the wrong default gender, you can simply click on the season and click edit, and it will bring the same screen up. So we're going to click cancel here, and now we're going to click OK. And now that we've got our season, then we're going to set up our teams. So once you've set your season, you'll come down here and select it. And now you're going to go to the teams menu, and you'll see the team drop down is empty. So start with your team first. And so what you're going to do is you're going to click add new, and we'll start, and I'll just put Utah Valley in here just as a placeholder. And you can put the name of your stadium, your city, your state, your team nickname. Your print name is really important because this is what's going to show up in your box score and in your live stats. And then your abbreviation. You can set your league and division and coach and conference. That's not really important. The next important thing that you're going to want to remember is to set your NCAA code. So Ryan, do you happen to know your RPI code for URU or UVU?
Yeah, offhand, I don't.
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to type in 123. It's probably not that. But then you click enter. This is important for two reasons. One, it's going to make sure when you generate that XML to send to the NCAA that you can do that, and it will report the stats for the correct team. The second important thing is once you do this, you unlock the ability to generate a season XML. Now, whether you use the season XML for your website or not, this is going to be important for one of our pregame reports that I'm going to show you here in a little bit. If you need to import a team from a TRO or a TRX file, you're going to save that file to your computer just like you always did with StatCrew, and you'll come here and you'll import it. The important thing to do is come over here, and we're going to change our drop down, and you'll notice we have format 1 is TRO, format 2 is TRX. So whatever you saved it as, you'll be able to change that extension, and it will show you wherever you saved those. And you'll be able to import it, and everything's good from there. If you need to export a team, Same thing. So we're going to come over here and we're going to change it to format 1 TRO, and we're going to click export, and you'll simply save it as UVU BB 2024, and you'll see the roster file extension .tro right here. And I always save them both. If I'm going to email them to somebody, I always save them both. And again, this is when you have your team code, you're going to be able to get that imported into the next person's software, and they'll be able to export the XMLs with no hiccups. Now, the important thing when you're exporting is you want to put your roster in first when you're exporting before you export. Otherwise, obviously, it's just a blank file. Any questions on any of those first couple of steps?
Yes, on the import, do you have to import both the TRO and the TRX the way you would on SecRoom?
You do not have to. In fact, when I'm importing into DakStats from a TRO or TRX file, I usually only import the TRX because I personally hate the way a box score looks when you have nothing but first initial, last name. I can't stand it. I want first name, last name, or last name, comma, first name. That's just me personally. So I usually only import the TRX. Good question, though. All right.
I also have Utah Valley's RPI code if you want it.
There you go. Fire away. What is it, Alan?
30024.
There we go. I didn't figure it was a 3-digit code. Usually those are the old hats that have been in the NCAA D1 for literal forever. But anytime you need to change your RPI code, you just do that here in the team code. Perfect. All right. So once you've got your team set up, then we're going to come down and we're going to select the team. And we're going to go to configure under the roster menu. And you're going to configure your roster. And the only thing that you have to have in there, literally the only thing you have to have is a jersey number. So if I did that, that is a totally legitimate roster entry for DakStats. Now, obviously, you're going to want more than that. And it's pretty simple. The only part of this that I would not fill out, two parts. I usually leave the position blank at the collegiate level because you've got so many what I call slash guys or slash gals where they play third base and outfield or catcher and second base. And if you select a position, every time you put in a lineup, it's going to default to that position. So you can do that if you want to put a position in, that's totally fine. But you don't have to, it works just fine without it. So let's put in here. I'm going to put in, and we're going to give you jersey number 1. We're going to go Ryan Pickens. And we're going to say you are the super senior. And then you put your height, weight. So we'll go 6'5", 205. There we go. That's pretty good, right? And then hometown, let's just pick Orem. And you can do whatever abbreviations you want to here. It really doesn't matter. The only other thing I leave blank, I'll always put in their bats and throws, but I'll leave the player code blank. That was for when you're using the web sync, it links the player automatically to previous seasons. So we're going to select, if you have a switch hitter, it's SW. If you have, they don't have the option for a switch thrower. So what was his name? Benedetti, or the guy for Oakland years ago who threw with both hands. We don't have the option for that in DakStats. Little bit behind the times on that. But then all you do is you hit enter, and you'll notice the name here updated now. And so now instead of it saying add player, comma, nothing, it says Pickens, comma, Ryan. And you just put your guys in, put your gals in, and fill out their roster stuff. You only have to do that once at the beginning of the season. The best thing, the best news roster-wise, you don't have a 40-player roster limit in DakStats. You can put in as many players as you want, and it won't throw you an error if you try to put somebody who's not active into a game because you're over your 40 player limit. If you do have a player who gets injured during the season, then you can check the disabled player to make sure if they're not traveling for a game, make sure they don't get stats, so then you don't have to worry about sorting through those nightmares at the end of the year. You simply click disable player, and it's just like deactivating them in Stat Crew. I always make sure I show disabled players in my DakStats roster. That way I know they're there. The only time I don't show the disabled players is if I'm entering a game and I don't want to see them, because you only want to see the players that you need to worry about. But these are just toggle checks that you can do that way to disable or enable players. Any question on roster management? You can also change your presentation down here to be from jersey order to name order. Whichever one is at the far left is what you're going to have. And name order is always going to alphabetize by last name. I usually like jersey number order because it's easier for me to find, especially on rosters I'm not familiar with. So once we're done with that, this is where I'm going to go back over to our 1989 MLB playoffs season, and we're going to show you how to add a game. Now you'll notice I already have 12 games in here. It's because I needed to have season XMLs for the two teams that are the default teams in your demo season. When you're playing around and trying to learn this software, if you go to the demo 99 season, you will see that there are two teams in here, North Delaware State and Santo Domingo State, both fictional universities. But if we look at the roster for North Delaware State, Ricky Henderson, Arnie Lansford, Mike Gallego, Jose Canseco, Dave Parker, Dave Henderson, Mark McGuire. Are these names sounding familiar yet? Terry Steinbach, Tony Phillips, Walt Weiss, Dave Stewart. This is the 1989 Oakland Athletics. It took me about 8 years before I noticed that, and it blew my mind at that point. And if we take a look at Santo Domingo State, Ernie Riles, Brett Butler, Robbie Thompson, Kevin Mitchell. This is the 1989 Giants. The rosters are already in there for you. So if you're trying to learn this software, a great way to do it, fire up YouTube and find you a 1989 World Series game. Set you up a play-by-play game in this Demo 99 season, and you'll be able to practice anything you need to practice. And believe me, having entered the playoff games that I entered so far, because I went back and did the LCS for the AL and the NL as well, there is just about everything you could think of that you're going to run into in the playoffs in 1989. And I think that may have been why they picked that season, because there's so much that happened there. For the purposes of this training, though, I have created a separate season. So we're going to come back to the 1989 MLB playoffs, and we're going to create a game. So we're going to come down here and click Add New, and we are going to set the date. Now, I'm not going to switch my presenting screen back and forth here every time, but rest assured that I am entering the correct data for Game 3 of the 1989 World Series, which was played on October 27th of 1989. And on this date line, you'll actually use your arrows on your keyboard to move between the month, day, and the year. For everything else, you'll use the tab key. So the visiting team in this instance was the Oakland Athletics, who came into play in this game with a record of 6-1 in the postseason. The home team was the San Francisco Giants. And the first thing you'll notice when I select the home team, that information from the configure team screen auto-populates here. Stadium, city, state. Now this is useful in almost every instance, but if you happen to have a situation where the home team is playing as the guest, then you end up with still having to manually edit that. But that's really the only time that this becomes an issue. So as I said, Oakland was 6-1 coming into this one. San Francisco was 4-3. The start time, the scheduled start time that night, was 5:40 local time. And I always put this in the time zone local to the game. And again, using the benefit of having baseball reference, I'm able to get a lot more information than you may have right away. So the attendance for this game was 62,300 or 62,038. So we come over here to attendance, 62038, and you can put this in after the game as well. I know the NCAA requires entering of the attendance. Tickets sold, I'm not really sure what they do with that, but I like to put it in there anyway. The temperature for that game with the 5:30 or 5:40 local start was 62, and it was clear. We come over here and we can check whether it's a night game, whether it's indoor stadium, which it wasn't, whether it was a neutral field, it wasn't, natural surface, yes. And then we come down here and we get our umpires. So Vic Voltaggio had the plate that night. Dutch Rennert was at first. Second base was Al Clark. Third base was good old Eric Gregg, the legend himself. Left field line was Richie Garcia. And the right field line was Paul Runge. And then you simply hit the enter key on your keyboard and it saves all those changes. And every bit of this, with the exception of tickets sold, is going to populate into your box score and your XML files. If you have a home as guest situation, let's say the Oakland A's were the visiting team, but they were actually at home, you'd put in their home ballpark information here and simply check this home as guest box. That's the equivalent in Stat Crew of putting the, I forget what the actual, the H in for home or away. It's whatever you would put in there as when the home team was batting as visitor. This is the DakStats equivalent. We had to fight for years to get that in. They put it in about the 2015 season, and we absolutely love it. In the event you ever have a forfeit you have to deal with, which is very rare at the NAIA level, Alan, you may run into this occasionally rare at the NCAA level. Alan, you may occasionally run into this at the NAIA level. Your forfeit is here. Forfeit none, forfeit home, forfeit visitor. And what this is going to do is it is going to change the line score in your box score outputs to read 7-0 or 9-0, depending on your scheduled number of innings. It will preserve all stats if the game has already been started. But if the game has not been started, it's going to set that line score, mark it as final, and you're done. So this is the equivalent of going in under the game information screen in Stat Crew and just typing in forfeit. Again, NCAA level, not likely to be a thing, but if you do run into it, this is where you go to mark those.
And let's have a question. Do you put the winning team at the forfeit or the losing team at the forfeit?
No, the losing team. This is the team that the forfeit is charged to. So if you have to, I had a situation when I was at Mid-America Christian where we had a player who snuck through and played in, I think, 13 games as an ineligible player. And I had to go back and manually edit every one of these to go back and mark it as a forfeit. And it took us from being a team that was 10 games over 500 to 10 games under that fast. It's unfortunate when that happens, but you do have the forfeit option here. So once we've got the game saved, if we make changes and we want to modify the last game, you could click yes so that it overwrites the last game. If you click no, then it's going to save a completely new game. So if you need to do a double header, anytime it sees the same date, it's going to ask if you want to modify the last game. So you can change game 1, game 2 really quickly and just select no for modify the last game so that you get both games of the doubleheader in your schedule. In this case, I'm going to overwrite and say yes, because this is going to be the same game. There was only one game that day. And when we click done, we'll notice that now we have this in here as that needs to be changed. So anytime you come back and you edit things, this needs to be 1989. We're going to save that. And it's going to order these by date. And so if you inadvertently or if you intentionally set up a tournament and you find out later, because baseball seems ridiculously averse to having the higher seed as the home team. I love baseball. It makes no sense to me. Why are we playing the regular season if the seeding means nothing? But if you do set up and find out that your home and visiting teams need to be swapped, before you open the game, you're going to click on it and click configure, and you're going to see this little VH red and blue arrow button come up. You simply click that button, and it's going to ask you if you're sure that you want to swap the home and visitor teams. You do that, boom. Now your home team and your visiting team have swapped, but notice it preserved all the rest of this information. So this is ideal for those neutral sites when you find out before the game that the opposite team is going to be home. But you have to do this before you open the game, or that option is going to be grayed out. So I'm going to swap them back here. Now we're back to the way it should have been. And we're going to click done. Do you wish to save this game? In this case, I'm going to click no, because we're right back where we started. And now we're going to open our game. So we click on it and open, or you can double click on it. And it brings us to the lineup entry screen. Now, the first thing you're going to do is it's going to ask you if you want the webcast to auto start. In this case, I'm going to say no, but most of the time you're probably going to say yes. So to configure your live stats, you're going to come up to the webcast tab. And you're going to click configure. And it's going to bring you here to your local webcast. This first tab is going to be exactly the same information that you would put into your StatCrew software to push your live stats out to Sidearm. You're going to set it exactly the same. You're going to check the output in XML format, but your URL is going to be the same. If you need a username and password, you'll uncheck this and you'll use the username and password. And you're going to use the default port, or you can uncheck that and use a manual port. But everything in this tab is going to be exactly the same as if you were sending it to StatCrew, or sending it to your Sidearm stats with StatCrew. Now, if you have a secondary site that you want to send these to, you'll use this second tab, the CSTV webcast. Like if you were sending it to ESPN or whatever, they'll give you the URL, the port, and the refresh interval, the authentication settings, all of that. All you've got to do is check enable. I know it says CSTV. That tells you how long ago this software was written. Alan, do you remember CSTV websites? Because I do.
Yes, when I was a student worker as a grad student at Texas State.
I remember when the University of Michigan had a CSTV website. That's been a long time ago.
It used to be the Division I standard, I thought.
It really did. Yeah, you're not wrong. It was the industry standard before Sidearm really kind of took that mantle. So all you got to do is check this box, enable output to CSTV. Even though it says CSTV, you're going to be able to change the URL and the port and the refresh interval and all of that as needed. Once you're done with that, you're going to click OK. And then the first time you'll need to go through and you'll need to manually restart the webcast. So you'll click Start. It'll give you the little blue circle and then it's good to go. So from there, this is the biggest difference in lineups from StatCrew to DakStats. In StatCrew, you put in the jersey number, then the position, then the jersey number, then the position. In DakStats, by far the easiest way to enter these lineups is to enter all the jersey numbers in 2-digit form and then all the positions. And let me show you what this looks like. So it starts with the home team. So I've got, for game 3 of the World Series that year, it was Brett Butler, Robbie Thompson, Will Clark, Kevin Mitchell, and Ken Oberkfell. So that is 0-2 for Butler, 0-6 for Thompson, 22 for Clark, and you'll notice these are just automatically advancing. 0-7 for Mitchell, 10 for Oberkfell. Then I come back and get the last half of the lineup. So I've got Matt Williams, Terry Kennedy, Pat Sheridan, and Scott Geralds. So Matt Williams was 9. Terry Kennedy was 16. Pat Sheridan was 25. And Geralds was 50. And you'll notice, because the rosters that DakStats uploaded initially with these teams had the positions put in there, all these positions auto-populated. So now we just hit the tab key twice and we turn this top one blue and we double check our positions. So we got center, second, first, left, third. Center, second, first, left, third base. So we just hit the 5. Matt Williams was at short, catcher, right, and pitcher the rest of the lineup. So short, catcher, right, and pitcher. Once that matches up, we simply hit enter and it populates everything. We've got our lineup now down here for San Francisco on the right. We've got our defense in there for the Giants out in the field. Now we're going to do the same thing for Oakland. Ricky Henderson, Carney Lansford, Jose Canseco, Mark McGuire, and Dave Henderson. Ricky, Carney, McGuire third? No, Canseco third. Canseco, McGuire, and Dave Henderson. Terry Steinbach, Tony Phillips, Walt Weiss, and Dave Stewart. So Steinbach, Phillips, Weiss, and Stewart. Now we're going to check our positions. Left, third, right, first, center. I always do it half at a time. Left, third, right, first, center. Catcher, second, short, pitcher. Catcher, second, short. We just hit the 6. Pitcher, and our lineups are in and we're ready to go. Now it brings you to the at-bat tab. You'll notice these tabs across the top have function keys assigned to them. F2 for batted ball, F3 for base runner, F4 for at-bat, F5 for subs, F6 for special, F7 for manual. Before we dive into this, did anybody have any questions on the lineups? All right, hearing none, we will proceed in here. And the first tab I'm going to show you is the least used tab, and that's this F6 tab. So F6 is for your special plays. Do we have an appeal? If so, what was the appeal? Did they bat out of order? Do we need to skip a position in the batting order? Maybe they batted out of order and the other team didn't catch it in time, so now we need to skip ahead to be back with the right part of the batting order. Were they hit by their own batted ball? Were they out for batter interference? Was there spectator interference? Was there fielder obstruction, an illegally batted ball? This one here, international tiebreaker. This is primarily softball. I don't know of any leagues right now that are using it at the NCAA level in baseball. This is the ever derided, and I love Jim DeShays for this moniker of it. This is the Manfred Man, and I hate it. This is my least favorite rule in all of baseball and softball, and it's for one simple reason. It makes it possible to throw a perfect game and lose. That's just my editorial comment. But when you have the Manfred Man going to second base, you simply click the international tiebreaker and put in the jersey number of the player on second. This takes the place of the old R:17, 2 that you would have to do in Stat Crew that was always just wonky and ridiculous.
And this is on DakStats. It is the uniform number, not the
not the batting order number. Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes, it is the uniform number here. I actually was using DakStats for scoreboard software for the Oklahoma City Dodgers when I lived in Oklahoma City in the playoffs one year, because all of Major and Minor League Baseball uses this for their scoreboard software, or at least they did up through the 2019 season. they used DakStats for their scoreboard software. And the minor leagues were testing the Manfred man rule at that point. And so I had to use this in a playoff game between the Dodgers and the Memphis Redbirds that year. So this is where all your special stuff hangs out. Typically, we don't get in here much. But when we do, important thing to know, each of these is going to have a series of fields that you're going to fill out that are going to tell you what information, which player is out. So this is going to be, I believe, the jersey number. Yes. Where did the appeal take place? It took place at first. What was the sequence? 97243, because we're weird like that. With DakStats, you do not put in any dashes. You simply enter the sequence just like you did with StatCrew. If they failed to touch the base, same options. If they left too early, same options. Now, the other ones that you will use somewhat regularly, especially in softball, illegally batted ball. This pretties up the play-by-play on those old 2U with a comment because your slap hitter was called out for being out of the batter's box. It still credits the 2U, but it looks better in the play-by-play to say so-and-so was out for an illegally batted ball rather than so-and-so was out, catcher unassisted, and then a wonky comment after. This cleans it up a little bit. Batter interference, every once in a while on a stolen base, you'll have the batter's interference. Hit by their own batted ball is very similar to the illegally batted ball. It credits the 2U and eliminates the need for a comment. Fielder obstruction is going to have you charge the obstruction, which will charge the error to whatever fielder committed the obstruction. Any questions on the special tab? All right. So now we're going to jump back to the at-bat tab, and we're actually going to start entering this game from the 1989 World Series. And I'm going to show you several different ways to do it. The first way is obviously you can use a mouse. If you have a mouse there, you can manually click each time you need to enter something. And the cool part about this, so Ricky Henderson leads off the game against Scott Geraltz, and he grounds out to short on an 0-2 pitch. So you can click strike, swinging or looking. Let's say the first one was looking and click enter, and it puts the strike and the strike looking here. Let's say the second strike was swinging, and then he puts the ball in play. So if we click in play, it's going to bring us to this next screen. Now he grounded out 6-3, so we can click the ground out, and we can click on the field, and that's going to input where the play took place. If you look really closely here, you can see the defined boundaries of where that is. So he grounded out to short, and then we just put our 6-3 in there, and we click enter, and it's going to put the out, it's going to put the ground out, and we move to the next batter. We can also use keyboard shortcuts. So the keyboard shortcuts are going to be the underlined letter with one minor tweak. So we've got Carney Lansford had a first pitch single to center, and he lined it to short center. So we start off in play, which is an I. It's going to default to a single. And then you can put in center by just hitting 8. You can get descriptive with it. I've done this long enough to know all of these. If you want a listing of the codes to type them in, you can go to help, and you can go to the user's manual, which is a PDF file, and it will bring up that PDF file, and you can scroll down, and there will be a handy dandy little diagram of the field that will have all of the different codes in it, and they are numerical codes in DakStats, whereas Stat Crew had letter codes. So like left field line in Stat Crew was LL. In DakStats, it's 7-2 for left field line. So when we scroll down, I'm going to briefly switch my presentation to show this. And all of this is in the user's manual, by the way. It's going to bring us to a page that has the entry codes eventually. It's way down here at the back of it. But it will show you all of these different codes. So for short center, it's actually 8-4. And then the important thing when you have base runners, this is one of my big annoyances with DakStats. You have to manually tell it what each base runner does, one base runner at a time, and one action at a time. So Carney Lansford stayed at first base here. So then we're going to come back over, and we're going to go to Jose Canseco. So he had a 4-pitch at bat on a 2-1 pitch. He singled to left, and Lansford advanced to second. So because I'm not watching and I don't care the order, I'm going to put in the 2 balls and the strike. And then I'm going to put in my ground ball through the left side, which is the hole at short. Then I'm going to tell Carney Lansford to advance on the batted ball to second and stay there. And Canseco stays there. Mark McGuire is the next batter. And on an 0-2 pitch, he grounded out 6-3, and the other 2 runners advanced. So we've got our 2 strikes. We're going to in play, ground out, 6-3. Lansford advances to third and stays. Canseco advances to second and stays. Brings up Dave Henderson. And on a 1-0 pitch, the second pitch of the at-bat, he doubled deep to right field and drove in 2. So we put in the first ball, which all you have to do is hit enter because it defaults to a ball. Then we're going to in play. He doubled, and this was to deep right field. And this brings us to our first major point with DakStats. You can't tell it RBI. It does not have a place for you to put in RBI. What you tell it instead when there is a run batted in to be awarded is that they advance on the batted ball to home. So in this case, both of these are going to default to home because each runner is going to default to getting 2 bases on a double. And then you have to tell it that Henderson stayed at second. You'll also notice we don't assign earned or unearned runs here. We'll get to that one in a moment. Because the next batter, Terry Steinbach, grounded out on a 2-2 pitch, 5-3 into the shortstop hole. So we're going to put in the 2 balls, the 2 strikes, in play, ground out, 5-6, and it automatically advances to the sequence, 5-3. And we're going to hit enter. If there are no errors or passed balls in the inning, and there are no pitching changes in the inning, it's going to default to earned runs for everything, and you simply have to hit enter. If there are reasons for those runs to not be earned, if there was an error or a passed ball, then this is going to come up blank, and you're going to have to manually assign the earned runs at the end of the inning. A lot of times, this is not going to be an issue. If you get an inning where there's an error early, and you have 4 pitching changes in the inning, we've all had those, this becomes a nightmare. So one of the recommendations I have with DakStats, just like with Stat Crew, always, always, always have scratch paper ready because you're going to want to keep tally marks for who was charged with what runs and all of that for those wonky innings. So we've put in the first half inning of this game. Any questions on how that half inning went? All right.
Because of the sophisticated, the more advanced location of where the ball is put in play. That was my favorite thing about this.
Yes. It is one of my favorite things as well, that we have all of these different places where the ball can be put in play, and you've got every possible configuration of what you can tell the software. So in the bottom of the first inning, we've got Brett Butler leading off against Dave Stewart, and on a 2-1 pitch, fourth pitch of the at bat, he flew out to left. So he flies out. So in play, fly out is F. Where did he fly out? 7, tab 7. And you can put that in, and we've got 1 out in the bottom of the inning. The next batter was Robbie Thompson, and on a 1-2 pitch, fourth pitch of the at-bat, he struck out swinging. So we're going to put in the ball, strike, strike, and then he struck out swinging. Now, anytime you are using the keyboard shortcut entry keys, the underlined letters, if the background to them is orange, you have to hold the shift key to use that keyboard shortcut stroke. Some of them it's really tough to see. So for swinging, the keyboard key is actually I. So you would hold shift I to get back to swinging. For looking, it's shift O. You got to look really close sometimes. This was a swinging strikeout. And so it's going to default to swinging. You also have the option on the strikeout for a bunting strikeout. So if they bunt at it and foul it, or if they bunt through it, they don't get it, then you have a play option, a play-by-play descriptor option for bunting. For a dropped third strike, we have a keyboard shortcut of Y. I don't know why they picked Y, but you don't have to hold the shift key for that. You would just hit Y and then hit enter and put in your sequence at first. You would also have options for pass ball, wild pitch, error on the catcher, tagged by the catcher, all of those things. So in this case, it was a normal strikeout swinging. We hit enter. Brings up Will Clark. So Clark, on an 0-2 pitch, the fifth pitch of the at-bat, he struck out swinging. So we've got 2 strikes and then 2 foul balls. You'll notice the pitch count continues to go up just like it does in Stat Crew. And then we've got another swinging strikeout. End of the inning, no runs were there, so we just enter past this. We go to the top of the second. Any questions on the bottom of the first? All right. So we're going to kind of cruise along here until we run into something new. And this is why I always recommend playing around in the software yourself. I'm not going to be able to go over every possible thing you're going to encounter. What will be able to do that is spending time playing around in the software, scoring games, watching it on YouTube, just going through and looking for weird situations. So we're going to cruise through. We've got a 6-pitch swinging strikeout for Tony Phillips on a 2-2 count. And it's really quick to enter these games. So when you're just going through and entering them, I can do a game in DakStats from a paper score sheet that's done well. I can do it in about 15 minutes. So for Walt Weiss, on a 1-1 pitch, he flew out to the center fielder in deep left center. So deep left center is 7-9 and the center fielder is 8. 2 outs, and Dave Stewart struck out looking on an 0-2 pitch. So we're going to strike him out looking, and we're done with the bottom of the second. If a question comes up, feel free to stop me because otherwise I'm just going to cruise through. All right, Kevin Mitchell, 1-2 count, 4-pitch at bat. He struck out swinging. Ken Oberkfell, 2-2 count, 6-pitch at bat. He flew out to right. Matt Williams, 1-1 count. He homered to deep left. So we've got a ball, we've got a strike, and then we've got a home run. And you will notice that there is a new thing that pops up here. You can tell it whether it was over the fence or inside the park. But we also have a distance box. If you feel like putting the distance in there and estimating it, it will show up in the play-by-play. If not, it's not going to hold you up. So this homer was a line drive to deep left. It was his third of the playoffs. And if you have your season XMLs loaded, then this is going to automatically update based on that season XML. And I just realized I forgot to show you all how to do that. We'll do that after the game. So Terry Kennedy comes up, and he struck out swinging on 3 pitches. Once again, we'll notice that there is just the 1 earned run. It automatically defaults to earned because nothing weird happened. Top of the third, Ricky Henderson. 3-2 pitch, 6th pitch of the at-bat. He doubled to deep left center. One thing you'll notice on our hits, single, double, triple, homer, the shortcut keys are these function keys, F9, 10, 11, and 12. Carney Lansford came up, 6th pitch, 3-2 count. He struck out looking. Henderson, then you have to tell the program that he stayed at second. And then on the first pitch of the next at bat, which was, I believe, well, it doesn't really matter. We're going to call it a ball. On the first pitch of the next at bat, Ricky Henderson steals third. So we're going to hit F3 to get to the base runner tab, or you can click on it. You're going to tell it he advanced. And we have a whole bunch of options here. The default is going to be on a stolen base for a base runner there. If there's an error, then we have this button here via error with the E underlined. If it's a trailing runner advancing on a previous error, then the shortcut key is this V. You'll notice it's capitalized. If it was via obstruction, let's say he was going to third, he was thrown out by a mile, or he was sliding in and Oberkfell blocked the bag and didn't let him get through it, then we're going to have the obstruction. Defense indifference. This is one where in Stat Crew you would just put a plus. This is going to be your key. It's going to read a little wonky in the play-by-play, but if you would have just put a plus in Stat Crew to advance the runner, then you're going to just charge defensive indifference. Even though it's not technically correct, it's the closest thing we have. If he advances on an error and should have been caught stealing, throw was in plenty of time, third baseman just dropped it, then we're going to say he advanced on an error and charged that caught stealing. If it was just a wild throw, then we're going to give the advanced on the error. If he's out, then we have picked off, caught stealing as the default, batter's interference, picked off and caught stealing, and advancing. Those are the ones you're going to use the most. Advancing is when you have a runner trying to advance after an obvious stolen base, but he didn't break early, didn't break with the pitch, runner at second breaks for third, runner at first waits until the guy at third is safe and then tries to go to second. Well, you're not going to take the stolen base away from the kid at third who beat the play. You're going to put it out as advancing on that. If he's picked off, then you're going to put that in there, whether that's a catcher pickoff or a pitcher pickoff. If he's picked off and caught stealing, this is where the pickoff throw goes behind and they relay ahead to get him. That's what you're going to have. Obviously, the caught stealing is pretty straightforward. Any questions on your base runner commands? All right. So in this case, he advanced on a stolen base. It's going to default to stolen base and one base ahead. And then again, you have to manually tell him to stay. So now the count is 1-0 on Canseco. And on a 1-2 count, he grounded out to third. So Henderson stayed put at third on that play. Brings up McGuire, and on the first pitch, he grounded out to the pitcher's mound. And so we move to the bottom of the third. Now, we've got Pat Sheridan coming up. On an 0-1 pitch, he grounded out to second. Now, Scott Geraltz, on a 1-2 pitch, fourth pitch of the at-bat, he struck out looking. Now we come back to the top of the order with Brett Butler. This is one where I love this if you have to do broadcast along with keeping stats. This is one of my favorite things with DakStats. If we look down here at the bottom, you will have each batter's last 4 plate appearances, what they did. If there's an out of the ordinary sequence, it will sometimes be listed here. And that last line will be the 0 for 1 or the 1 for 1 or whatever. This is just fantastic as a broadcast aid. I love it. So in this case, Brett Butler on the first pitch, flied out to right center, and the center fielder made the catch. So right center in DakStats is 8-8. And the center fielder, Henderson, made the catch. Nothing across in the inning. You'll also notice from a broadcast standpoint, you have your inning summary over here in the play-by-play bottom left. All right. So we go to the top of the fourth. Excuse me. All right. Top of the fourth. So Dave Henderson homers on a 2-0 pitch, and he homers to deep right center field. So deep right center is 8-9. And you'll notice a pattern with the way these things go. 1, 2, 3 is shallow, middle, and deep down the line. 4, 5, 6 is shallow, normal, and deep to the straightaway position. 7, 8, 9 is shallow, middle, and deep in the gaps. So in this case, he homered to deep right center. It's his second of the playoffs, and it will automatically credit the RBI. First pitch of the next at bat, Terry Steinbach grounded out up the middle, 6-3. So we go in play, ground out up the middle is 4-6, and then 6-3. And in the infield, your hole on the right side, your up the middle, and your hole on the left side are always going to be the 2 position numbers with the lowest one first. So the hole on the right side is 3-4, up the middle is 4-6, the hole on the left side is 5-6. So it's always going to be the lower number first. Tony Phillips comes up, and on the first pitch, he homers to deep right. So we got another home run. This one is deep right, so it's 9-6. It's his first. It's over the fence. And now we got Walt Weiss coming up, but we have a pitching change first. So now Kelly Downs is going to come in and replace Scott Geraltz. So we're going to come to the subs tab, F5. And Kelly Downs, I've done enough of the Giants games from this postseason to know he's number 37. And once you have him in, it's going to, you just hit enter, and it puts him on the mound, resets everything, and we are ready to go. So now Walt Weiss on the first pitch grounds out to first unassisted. Now, unassisted putouts, you do not put the U in anymore. It is only the number. In Stat Crew, you would put it in as a 3U. Here it's just a 3. And you hit enter. Then Dave Stewart on the 7th pitch, full count, lined out to second. And now you'll notice we didn't have any errors. We didn't have any pass balls, but we did have a pitching change. So now we have to come through and we have to manually assign these runs. Thankfully, in this instance, It's not too difficult to do because they were both homers, and immediately after the second homer was the pitching change, and nothing else happened. So both of them are earned to Geralt's, and we move to the bottom of the fourth. In the bottom of the fourth, 3-pitch swinging strikeout for Robbie Thompson. Will Clark singled to right center on the first pitch of the at-bat. So remember, right center is 8-8, and he's going to stay put at first. First pitch of the next at-bat, Kevin Mitchell singled through the left side, and Clark moved to second. So in play, single 5-6, hole it short. Clark goes up to second. Mitchell stays at first. Ken Oberkfell drew a 4-pitch walk. Now, this is where you can get yourself in trouble if you're not paying attention. Your walks, you will always have, after you put your fourth ball in, it will ask you if it was a non-intentional or intentional walk. Most of these are going to be non-intentional, especially now. Does the NCAA, Ryan, do they make the pitchers throw the pitches on intentional walks anymore? I know they used to.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore? They changed that when MLB did it? Okay. So you can actually get straight to this by just going to the batted ball tab and selecting walk, so you don't have to put in those 4 balls. And you also have the ball no pitch option as well if you want to do that. But you're going to tell it non-intentional. And the first thing you'll notice here, we just had a walk. And it's telling us that Clark is going to default to stay at second. If you're not paying attention and you just keep hitting enter to try to get through it, it's going to make you try and put a put out in somewhere because it doesn't automatically advance him to third. I don't know why. That's one of my biggest annoyances. So you're going to tell it he advanced on the walk to third base. Then he stayed. Mitchell went to second on the walk and stayed. Oberkfell stayed at first. Matt Williams had a 4-pitch strikeout looking, 1-2 count. And everybody stayed put. Terry Kennedy comes up, and on a 1-1 pitch, he singled into left center, knocked in 2, and Oberkfell stayed at second. So we go back to the batted ball tab here, or the at-bat tab, to put the 2 pitches in there. And then a single to left center. Clark scores, Mitchell scores, Oberkfell to second. He stays, and Kennedy stays. Pat Sheridan on a 2-2 pitch, grounded out, first base to pitcher in the hole between first and second, 5th pitch of the at-bat. So 2 balls, 2 strikes, and then a ground out, 3-4, 3-1. 2 earned runs to Stewart. We move to the 5th. All right. So Ricky Henderson draws a 6-pitch full count walk. Carney Lansford comes up, and on the 3rd pitch of that at-bat, which was a ball, Ricky steals second because Ricky's being Ricky, and Ricky steals everything. That dude was unbelievable. So we've got a 2-1 count, and then on a 3-1 count, Carney Lansford draws a walk. Now, important to note, if you accidentally forget to put in a steal, you're distracted, something happens, and you have to go back. You cannot change advanced on a walk to a stolen base or vice versa. You have to delete the pitches, the pitch sequence, and re-enter it correctly. That can be highly annoying. There are certain things with DakStats baseball that it just takes some getting used to so that they don't become highly annoying, and even still, they're going to be somewhat annoying. So Jose Canseco comes up, and on a 2-2 pitch, 5th pitch of the at-bat, Jose Canseco breaks it wide open with a 3-run homer to deep left center. His second of the playoffs. Henderson scores, Lansford scores, and it is 7-3. Mark McGuire comes up, 3-pitch strikeout. And it was a swinging strikeout. Brings up Dave Henderson. 0-1 pitch. He hits a home run to deep left center. His third of the postseason. I believe that's his second of the game. And now we've got a double switch. Now, this isn't something you should have to do often, but it's just the same as in Stat Cruise. So when we've got a double switch, we come over here to the subs tab. And we've got Jeff Brantley going in to replace Pat Sheridan, pitching and batting eighth. So we come down here to the 8th spot, and Brantley comes in. He's number 49. And then Candy Maldonado replaces Kelly Downs, playing right field and batting ninth. I usually do the numbers first because then I have the ability to just tab over and do the positions. So Candy Maldonado's number 21 here. And then we're going to tab over, and Brantley's going to be the pitcher, and Maldonado's in right field. And we go ahead and hit enter, and we move on ahead. Terry Steinbach draws a 6-pitch full count walk. On an 0-1 pitch to Tony Phillips, we have a balk. You'll notice balk is here, and it is underlined with the letter K is underlined. So that's your keyboard shortcut. And then it's going to put the balk in, and you have to manually advance the runner on the balk. So then on an 0-2 pitch, Phillips strikes out looking. Steinbach stays at second. And then on the 4th pitch of a 2-1 count in the at-bat, Walt Weiss grounds out first base to pitcher in the hole again. So again, this is 3-4-3-1. 3-4 for the hole on the right side, and then 3-1 on your sequence. And we've got 2 earned runs going to Downs this time because, again, actually, excuse me, that is 4 earned runs going to Downs this time because you had 4 runs score on 2 homers, a pitching change, no errors, no pass balls. If you have a different number of runs entered in these 4 boxes, or 6 or 8 or however many it might be, then were actually scored in the inning, it's going to give you that error message that you saw pop up a moment ago. And that's going to tell you, wait a minute, you need to double check your number of runs in this inning. So we correct it, we put it back in, and we move to the bottom of the 5th. So in the bottom of the 5th, Candy Maldonado grounds out on the first pitch, grounds out up the middle, 4-3. 4-6, 4-3. Brings Brett Butler to the plate on a 1-1 pitch. He flies out to center. Then we've got Robbie Thompson coming in. And on the first pitch, he flies out to short left, and the left fielder makes the catch. So that'd be 7-4 for shallow left and 7. Henderson with the catch. And we're going to move to the 6th. All right, Dave Stewart on a 1-1 pitch popped up to second base in short right center field. So he hits a pop fly. Short right center is 8-7. And the second baseman, 4, made the catch. Ricky Henderson comes up, and on the second pitch, 1-0 count, he grounds out 5-3. And then Carney Lansford comes up, and on the first pitch, he homers. I guess the Oakland offense that night was a little anxious to get going after a 10-day layoff. So he homers on the first pitch to deep left. There we go. And then Jose Canseco on the second pitch flies out to deep left. It was an 0-1 pitch. And we've got 1 earned run in the top of the 6th. We go to the bottom of the 6th. Will Clark on a 2-0 pitch pops out to short. Kevin Mitchell on a 2-2 pitch, 6th pitch of the at-bat, flies out to the center fielder in right center. There we go. And then Keno Burkfell on a 1-1 pitch, base hit through the right side, and stays at first. And then Matt Williams on the first pitch, flied out to deep right center, and it was Henderson in center to make the catch. And that's the end of the 6th. We move to the 7th. Mark McGuire draws a 6-pitch 3-2 walk. Dave Henderson grounds into a double play on the 5th pitch, 2-2 count. Double plays are a little bit more involved in DakStats. So he's going to put the ball in play, and we're going to hit D for double play. And where did he hit this ball to? He hit it to third. So we're going to put in 5 for third. Then we give him the first put out. So that's 4, Thompson at second. The out 1 is usually going to be from first base. If it is from second or third, or if it's the batter, then we will change the out 1 to mirror whatever base they were taking off from. So if you put in a double play and there's a ground out 4-3, the first out is made at first base, then this becomes a 4. And then if they get McGuire in a rundown between second and third, then we have a different double play, but we're still going to do this. We also have several options for ways that we can put this in here. The most often used is going to be grounded into. There's also flied into, so if you have a fly ball and they throw behind, you can put it in this way. If they have a lined into, they line it to second base, he makes the catch and throws behind, we have that. If they popped into it, runner was going, short pop fly to second, Thompson catches it, throws to Clark. We've got the popped into and then the bunted into. So if he bunts a one hopper back to the mound or if he pops one up and they turn the double play that way, you have all of those options to use. And these are mostly for the play-by-play, with the exception of the grounded into, because there is that's own separate category in your season stats. So in this case, this is just your ordinary run-of-the-mill 5-4-3 double play. So it's hit to third. The first put out is at second. Your first out is the runner from first. Your second out is the runner from home. And your sequence is 5-4-3. And now we've got 2 outs and the base is empty. Terry Steinbach comes to the plate. And on the first pitch, he's going to reach on an E5. So this is where we have the error come in. And you'll notice we have a lot of different options for errors. We've got a bobble, a dropped fly, a dropped pop-up, a dropped foul ball, a missed catch, a missed grounder, obstruction, or a wild throw. You only have to use these if you want the play-by-play to reflect them. It's not going to affect the statistics that are counted at all, but it does make the play-by-play look a little nicer. So in this case, it was hit into the 5-6 hole, and it was a ground ball, so we're going to say a misplayed grounder. It was hit to 5-6. The error was by the third baseman, 5, and he reached first base, 1. There were no assists on this. So the assist sequence is for if the error is a missed catch, shortstop makes a great play, makes a good throw, first baseman clanks it, and you charge the error on the first baseman. We still award in baseball, we still award the assist to that shortstop for the good throw. Most of the time, you're not going to put anything in this assist box. And we hit enter, and we tell them the runner's going to stay. Now, Tony Phillips comes up, and on the second pitch, 0-1 count, he grounds out into the hole on the right side, 4-3. And no runs scored in this inning, but if they had, we would have had to manually assign the runs because of that error. Bottom of the 7th. All right. First pitch, Terry Kennedy pops up to third. Now, this is one where different people do it different ways in DakStats. I like to just put what general area of the field it was popped to. But if you click on it and you say this one was to the pitcher's right, and you click here, it's going to say 2 is the infield. When I see 2, I think of 2 as the home plate area. DakStats considers the entire infield 2. I wish it didn't. It does. So we're going to say the pop fly was caught by the third baseman Lansford in fair territory. And we're going to put that out in there. And now we have Ernie Riles is going to pinch hit for Jeff Brantley. So we come back up here.
Lexi, before you go on to that, I would just say I use the infield key in DakStats for softball because I don't like pitcher's mound showing up in
Right.
the softball.
Yes, and that is a
Play-by-play.
very good point, because the play-by-play is always going to say pitcher's mound, even in softball when there's not a pitcher's mound. Good point there, Alan. So Riles is pinch hitting here. And on a 1-1 pitch, he flied out to deep right center, and it was Henderson who made the catch. Brings up Candy Maldonado. And on the 7th pitch, 3-2 count, he struck out swinging. And that 7th inning is in the books, and now we have to come in and we have to put the new pitcher in. So once again, I like using my tab key. I'm going to come down here, and it's Atlee Hammaker who's coming in to pitch. Hammaker's jersey number 14. And we just use the tab key to get over and make him the pitcher. Now, we've got Walt Weiss, who on the 2nd pitch, 0-1 count, singled to third. And then we got Dave Stewart coming up. So we're going to have a pinch hitter for Dave Stewart, because this is 1989 in the National League Park, and baseball's being played the way it should be without the designated hitter. And Lance Blankenship is going to pinch hit for Dave Stewart. Lance Blankenship is number 12. And he's going to pinch hit. And on the 4th pitch, 1-2 count, he's going to hit a base hit right back up the middle. And Weiss is going to advance to second and stay there. Going to bring up Ricky. And on a 1-1 pitch, Ricky's going to fly out to deep left center, and Weiss is going to tag and move to third. And who made the catch on that one? It was the center fielder who made the catch. And now Weiss is going to advance on the batted ball to third base and stay. Blankenship stays put at first. Carney Lansford comes up, and on the 1st pitch, he singles through the left side. And here's where we're going to have some fun. Okay, so we've got a single through the left side, and Weiss is going to score. But then Blankenship is going to advance to second. And then he's also going to score, but he's going to score on an E7. So we're going to put that in. We're going to put in that he reaches 4. And we're going to put that this is a misplayed grounder. And then Carney Lansford on the same error is going to move up to second. So this is where we're going to tell it advanced on the previous error to second base. And then he stops there. So now we've got our scratch paper, and this is where we're going to have to start keeping track of where would runners be, because this is an error that's not accompanied by a typical putout. And so we have to go back and refigure it up between the innings. So then Jose Canseco comes up, and on the 1st pitch, he singles to short, and Lansford goes to third. Then McGuire comes up, and on an 0-2 pitch, he grounds out 1-4-3. Lansford scores, and Canseco to second. So I put that one as up the middle, and then 1-4-3. Lansford scores, Canseco to second. And he does get an RBI on that play. So we put it on the batted ball. So Dave Henderson comes up, and on the 3rd pitch, he's hit by a pitch, 1-1 count. So for a hit by pitch, we're going to hit the in play button, and then we're going to hit the hit by pitch over here. And we're going to tell the runners that they stay, and Henderson goes to first. Now Terry Steinbach comes up. And Steinbach is going to, on the 1-0 pitch, he's going to single to left. Canseco is going to score. And Henderson is going to stop at second. Craig Lefferts at this point is going to come in to replace Atlee Hammaker. What a disaster of an inning Hammaker had. I really hope nobody watching this is an 89 Giants fan, because they're probably reliving some very, very painful memories with this game 3 if they are. And so Lefferts is number 32. He's going to come in to clean up the mess. And on the 4th pitch, a 2-1 count, Tony Phillips is going to fly out to left center, and the center fielder is going to catch it. And now we have to count up the carnage. So when we take out that error, it would have been runners at first and second with 1 run in after Lansford's at bat. Canseco's single would have loaded the bases. The ground out from McGuire would have scored Lansford, so there's 1 earned run. Dave Henderson would have been hit by a pitch which would have reloaded the bases. And then Terry Steinbach's single would have scored a 2nd earned run. So we would have had 2 earned and 1 unearned run, all of them to Hammaker. Hang on a minute. What am I missing here? Oh, sorry. 3 earned and 1 unearned to Hammaker, because we had the earned run before that. So 3 earned and 1 unearned, and we go to the 8th. And now in the 8th, we have all kinds of crazy substitutions. So Rick Honeycutt is going to replace Carney Lansford. We got Lance Blankenship is going to move from pinch hitter to second. Tony Phillips is going to move from second to third. Stan Javier is going to replace Jose Canseco. So Stan Javier is number 28. And he's going to play right field. And then we'll have a pinch hitter on the San Francisco side. So Honeycutt is now the pitcher. Javier is in right. We got Blankenship moving to second and Phillips moving to third. So Phillips goes to third, Blankenship to second. And then we come right back in here. And we have the pinch hitter for Butler, which is going to be Donnell Nixon, number 30. Nixon, on the first pitch, grounds out up the middle, 6-3. All right. And then Greg Litton, or Litton rather, is going to pinch hit for Robbie Thompson. So we got another one here. Greg Litton is number 15. And you'll notice that 15 has 2 different numbers here for San Francisco. When you have multiple numbers, it's going to ask you manually for the name of the player. It's not just going to give you an error. You can still move forward. So Litton pinch hits, and on the first pitch, he singles up the middle. Will Clark comes up, and a 4-pitch strikeout on a 1-2 count. It was a swinging strikeout. Litton stays put. And then Kevin Mitchell is going to hit into a fielder's choice 5-4 on the second pitch, 0-1. So with a fielder's choice, you're simply going to put where it was hit to, and then you're going to put your outs on the runner. So Litton was out 5-4, forced out. We have all these other options as well for different ways that they could be put out on the bases. And now we're going to go to the 9th. We've got Kurt Manwaring is going to replace Terry Kennedy. So this is another duplicate number situation. Greg Litton is going to move to second, and Donnell Nixon is going to move to center. So there's 8, 4, and Manwaring stays at 2. And now this is going to be the really weird one, where we now have both number 15s in the game. You wouldn't likely run into this, but you can. All right. So
did that actually happen in the game, or was?
No, that's me having a different trying to put in the numbers and trying to make sure that I had everybody in there. That I missed one going through Baseball Reference. That's what that is.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. Sorry I brought it up.
No, you're fine. You're fine. So Walt Weiss leads off the inning, 2-1 pitch. He pops up to second base in short right field. So that's 9-4-4. Blankenship on a 2-1 pitch reaches on an E1. this ball was hit towards first. So I usually put 3, 1, 1, and in this case, it was probably just a bobble. Blankenship is there safely. Ricky Henderson on a 1-2 pitch, fourth pitch of the at-bat, lined out to left. And Blankenship stays put. And now we got Mike Gallego pinch hitting for Rick Honeycutt. To switch teams, you can either touch on, or you can either click on the team abbreviation, or you can simply hit the letter O for opponent to switch teams, and Gallego is going to pinch hit. And then on a 1-2 pitch, fourth pitch of the at-bat, he flies out to right. And we had nothing happen in that half inning. And now we get to the ninth. So Gene Nelson is going to replace Ricky Henderson. So Gene Nelson is number 19. We got Gallego going to third and Phillips going to left. And Nelson's going to pitch. Third and left. And then we've got Ken Oberkfeld's going to draw a 5-pitch walk. He's going to stay at first. Matt Williams on a 1-1 pitch is going to fly out to the center fielder and left center. Oberkfeld's going to stay put. Kurt Manwaring is going to double to right on a 1-0 pitch, and Oberkfeld's going to stay at third. And then Bill Bath is going to pinch hit for Craig Lefferts. Bath is number 18, I believe. Yep. And on a 1-0 pitch, he's going to homer to deep left for 3 RBIs. And then a 5-pitch strikeout looking for Candy Maldonado. Donnell Nixon singles to center up the middle on a 2-0 pitch. Greg Litton doubles to left on a 2-0 pitch, and Nixon scores. Will Clark's going to draw a 4-pitch walk. And Kevin Mitchell on a 1-2 pitch, fourth pitch, is going to fly out to deep left. All right, we have reached the end of the ninth, and now we go to game wrap-up. So for game wrap-up, it's going to be just like Stat Crew. It's going to prompt you for substitutions like we're continuing. We're not. So we're going to go to game control and game finished. It's going to prompt you for the winner, the loser, and the save. In this case, the winner was Dave Stewart. And you can put in their first digit of their jersey number, and it usually pulls them right up. Scott Geraltz was the loser. Stewart is 4-0 at this point in the postseason. Geraltz is 1-2. The game took, in this case, 3 hours and 3 minutes. Now, if you've got your game time set correctly, you can simply hit the recalculate duration when you're done, and it will automatically do the math for you. Ignore this bottom part for the standings. I still haven't figured out what that's for. I'm assuming something with organized baseball, major and minor leagues. But then we hit enter for OK, and it's going to prompt us to update the team win-loss records and the duration. So Oakland is now 7-1. San Francisco is 4-4. We've already updated our duration, so we're going to hit enter to save it. And then we're done. Now, it's going to ask you, do you wish to upload one final webcast data file to ensure that all stats are uploaded? We're 99 times out of 100 going to click yes here. It's not going to do anything now since I'm actually not sending it anywhere. But we're going to upload that, and then this will turn red. This green circle will turn red once that's done, but that doesn't affect the rest of your post-game stuff. So to print an in-game box and play-by-play, you'll go to print in-game. You'll select what you want to do. I usually do a box and play-by-play with count, and then click output as combined file. And that's going to bring it all into one file for you, so that if you use that PDF for some reason, you still have that all as one. Otherwise, it's going to output the box score and the play-by-play as separate files, and you won't be able to access them from the links unless you're on the computer that scored the game. So this is going to give you your box score. It's going to give you your play-by-play. It's got your pitch sequence that was entered here for all of these, just like StatCrew. To export your XML, you're going to go File, Export Game. You're going to choose the game, choose the team first. So let's choose the Giants here. It's going to default to the last game listed on the schedule. You're going to change it to StatCrew XML. You're going to choose your directory that you want to send it to. I usually just create a folder in my documents or downloads. So in this case, I'm going to put one in my I'm going to put it in my documents and just click OK. And then once you've got that set, you're going to click export. It's going to successfully export that file, and you're going to click OK and then done. Then you can close the game. And now you can export the season to date files. And so you're going to select, I'm going to do one for both the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. We're going to do NCAA XML. We've got it in the documents folder here. And you'll pay special attention to the code that you have in here. Now, in this case, because these were Major League Baseball teams, I put their zip codes in there. So 94621 is going to be Oakland. We're going to click Export. And it's got to have a valid team code. So once you get these exported, I don't know why that's not saying that's a valid team code, but you're going to export and you're going to click Done. And the important thing for that is when you go for the next game, you're going to come to Configure. I think it's Configure. I got to find it again here. We might have to have the game open for it. Because there's a way you import those XML files and import season stats. Here it is. So you're going to select your XML files for your home and guest, and you're going to import those season files. And if you're familiar with the StatCrew pregame report that has your batting lineup, your pitcher, all of their season lines, all of that, DakStats has a similar report, and it pulls from the season XML file. So this is essentially the replacement for the cap files that we used to have to send with StatCrew. That's the last thing that I had that I wanted to go over, because that's 95% of it. The rest you can figure out by playing with it. I know I said allow 30 to 45 minutes, and here we are pushing over an hour and a half, but I think it was good information, and I think it's good to have that. So before we wrap this up, do either of you have any questions?
Ryan, I'll start. Well, the season XML files, what occurred to me is that, is it possible, because when I'm at the NAI and I was using StatCrew, I would just manually generate a cap file for the other team. Could I then turn that into an XML that DakStats would read?
Potentially. I'm not as familiar with StatCrew turning that cap file into an XML. I know you can import the cap file, and then I'm pretty sure you can export an XML out of the team reports deal for StatCrew. But into DakStats, you would need to import the XML. And I'm 95% sure the reason that it wouldn't import that was because it was not recognizing that as a valid NCAA RPI code. So your NCAA RPI codes are going to be what you're going to use for that. But then you'll have the pregame report. And that was probably my single favorite report to have, was that pregame report, because you could literally do just about everything with it.
Yeah.
Ryan, did you have any questions?
I think my biggest concern was the pregame report, because for a coach, that's a
Yes.
vital element of things. The other question I had, and I think I remember reading this probably just on the Facebook page, but
Mhm.
there's no way to do a pack file, correct, with
There is
DakStats?
not. That is the major limitation. And the reason that that never became a thing was when DakStats was the official software of the NAIA, a lot of us in the NAIA were still playing NCAA schools. They started with basketball and got us a BPK file for basketball. They got us a VGM file for volleyball, but then StatCrew announced StatCrew Next Gen that flamed out. And at that point, the NAIA folks or the DakStats folks said, it's going to an XML based thing anyway. Why would we waste our time regenerating this other file type, reverse engineering it, when it's just going to be an XML thing? And then Next Gen never took off. So there is not a way to do a pack file, but with a good play-by-play, you can easily put a game into StatCrew in 15 minutes this way. Yes, it's a 15-minute annoyance, but it's easily doable. And I'll tell you this too. When I was at the University of Northwestern Ohio, the Wolverine Hoosier Athletic Conference, we like to call ourselves the other WAC because that's how we pronounced it. We were a StatCrew conference, so we had to report to our conference in StatCrew and to the NAIA and DakStats at the time I was there. I did both live at the same time for baseball, and it's super doable. Super doable, especially if you're not doing much else in the press box. Easily doable to do both with how slow the game moves.
Okay. So we'd have to basically manually take the play-by-play from DakStats and then re-enter into StatCrew. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think that was my only other question.
Sure.
Ryan, I'll add to that if you're wanting to use DakStats for the play-by-play, then just keep generating pack files as a backup in StatCrew. You wouldn't even have to necessarily put in pitch by pitch. That could save you some time on that too.
Right. Okay.
That's a valid point too. I don't know StatCrew as well as Alan does, so I will defer to Alan on that point as well. All right, South Texas Border Sports. I see you're able to join us here. Don't worry, you whatever you missed will be available when I get this uploaded. I'm going to probably upload it to YouTube and then share the link in the group so that we have everything there. Did you have a question?
Question and comment. You know, I just got out of my other employment. F in the chat for that one for me. But the question I did have, you were mentioning right now about having both being doable.
Yes.
And since I guess that there isn't a because I work at an NCAA institution.
Sure.
And pretty soon I'll be either migrating myself to a junior college, and I just want to be like covered on the basis that I know with Presto it's like a ridiculous amount of money for just one sport.
Yeah.
Can this be doable at the junior college level?
1,000%.
Okay.
Yes. Absolutely, it can. It generates all the files you need to report to Presto. It absolutely can be used at the junior college level. And let me just ask this question because I know a lot of junior college folks are pulling double duty in the press box. And typically when you see something like South Texas Border Sports, that's usually an indication that it's some sort of a broadcast thing as well. Will you be handling play-by-play duties while you're doing this as well?
Yes, that's the gravitational leaning at this point.
Okay.
I am working along with the campus SID to instead of like, hey, if we're gonna do something like this, this is our route. Like I want to like fully back him up 100% on the evidence that whether it be baseball, soccer, volleyball, that this is all doable under one umbrella.
Yes, absolutely. So the thing I love about DakStats Baseball, and I don't know if you caught it, so I'm going to reopen it here. Actually, I'm going to go into the demo season to reopen this into an incomplete play-by-play. I did about 1,100 games worth of play-by-play here over the time I was in the NAIA. So I got to find one where the game has actually started. Here we go. Let's try this one. So as we're in a game, the thing I love the best about this is you have everything you need as a broadcaster on one screen. You have the batter, you have any base runners, you have the defenders, you have the batter's last 4 at bats, you have the total batting lines for everybody down here. The only thing missing, the only thing you'll have to keep up with manually is if you have a pitcher go off with a bunch of strikeouts, you'll have to keep the strikeout total manually and the walk total manually. I had one when I was at Mid-America Christian in Oklahoma City where we had a kid strike out 19 in a 7-inning game. Electric performance, just unbelievable. That was my one thing I wished DakStats had that day was a running total of his strikeouts, but it's easy enough to just keep a little tally mark on an index card or on a piece of paper next to it there.
Excellent. I kind of like where this is going. I mean, I'm glad I caught on the tail end of this.
Yep.
Absolutely loving this now. I mean, now I'm just going to have to find a way to do this as a presentation once it's available. This will serve me as a little bit of a handicap to really push for this instead of making that ugly 3-digit donation to Presto.
Right. And that's I think people would not be as hesitant to make that donation to Presto if it weren't for the constant issues we've all seen Presto have for the last 2 and 3 years as they've taken on the NAIA in addition to the NJCAA and all of the issues that their systems have had. I think that's been the big hesitation for a lot of folks. One thing I will tell you that I told Alan and Ryan earlier, if you want to play around in the software to get to know it a little bit better, the best way to do it, and you can watch back the video once I post this, but the best way to do it is to get in there and get some hands-on. And the default rosters in the demo season are the 1989 Athletics and the 1989 Giants. So if you can find a YouTube video with any of those 1989 World Series games, you can score it in the software and go to town and learn it real easy.
Will there be an earthquake?
I sure hope not. I sure hope not. We just scored game 3 of the World Series.
Near the Texas Mexico border.
Right.
Just to give you an idea where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm currently trying to move all my material to Brownsville. I mean, I love Edinburgh, Texas. They're growing exponentially fast as a Division I school, but with this Sports Genius software that's out there, nothing against it, but the timeline to 2025 in baseball, it's just so I don't think they'll get there in time.
It's a major concern for a lot of people. It is. And that's why I wanted to present this as an alternative option, because Stat Crew Live Stats goes away after 2025. It does. And if Genius isn't ready, then there needs to be a viable option to Presto. And this is not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say that it is, but it is a viable option.
Got you.
All right. Well, if that's all that we have for tonight, I do appreciate you guys taking a little time to come out here. Again, you can check it out on the replay once I get it uploaded to YouTube. Until that time, for everyone here, I thank you guys for joining. We'll see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.